On September 22, 1827, 21-year-old Joseph Smith Jr. received the gold plates from the angel Moroni. No sooner had he received them than the most strenuous exertions were used to get them from him.
So what you have then sort of becomes a kind of a cat and mouse game. This is September, early October, and he's got the plates at home, but absolutely no peace and quiet in which to translate them. His whole energy regarding the plates is just keeping them safe. Hides them in various places. We've got great accounts where they're under the hearth for a time. When they get discovered there, he hides them under some flax in a little loft across the road, and that area gets ransacked, and it's just one thing after another. And ultimately he ends up getting shot at, and it's kind of at that point where I think he realizes that if he's going to translate the plates, if he's going to be around even to translate the plates, he's going to have to get out of there.
It was December 1828 when Joseph and Emma Smith took the plates and moved to Harmony, Pennsylvania, where Joseph began in earnest the translation process.
From the accounts we have with Joseph Smith, it's in Harmony where he first begins to translate the plates, where he finally has some peace and some quiet and some safety where he can see what it is that he's got there.
Martin Harris financially helped Joseph and Emma move to Harmony in December 1827. A few months later, in February 1828, Martin Harris took a copy of the Book of Mormon characters to New York to be examined by several learned men, including Luther Bradish, Samuel Mitchell, and Charles Anthon. He returned on April 12, 1828, and from then until June 14th, he assisted Joseph in translation of a significant amount of the pages.
And when he comes back, when Martin Harris comes back without any scholar willing or able to help translate, Joseph writes in his 1832 history, he writes that, quoting from Isaiah, that I was not learned. But then he said, but the Lord had prepared spectacles to read the book, wherefore I commenced translating. And so it seems like that, at least for Joseph, when he sees himself as really engaging in the translation, is after Martin Harris gets back from that journey to the East.
Other than the prophet Joseph Smith, the person who may have been the most invested and dedicated to the coming forth of the Book of Mormon was Emma Smith. She would bear a powerful and insightful testimony of it all her days.
We do know that she engages in that translation process as scribe. She says that the plates lay there on the table covered. She had provided the covering. She says in a later reminiscence or a later interview, she says that she would clean around the plates. She never saw them, but she would clean around them. She traced the outline and the shape. Another instance of a woman who is a witness of the physical, tangible materiality of these plates, tangible nature of the plates.
For a period of some 2 months, Martin assisted Joseph Smith as his scribe. After completing the translation of what Joseph later identified as the Book of Lehi, consisting of approximately 116 pages, Martin asked Joseph if he could take the manuscript back to Palmyra to show his wife and immediate family members what he and Joseph had accomplished.
And Martin is really anxious to show those to his family, in particular his wife, Lucy, who'd been hot and cold, on again, off again, interested in what Joseph Smith was doing, and sometimes very skeptical and even worried, paranoid about Martin's involvement. And Martin felt like showing these pages would do a lot to dispel those concerns. And so he persists in begging Joseph for the chance. This classic story, I think it is such a classic story because so many lessons are embedded in this story, as Joseph Smith petitions the Lord to give Martin Harris permission to take the pages. And finally, after repeated petitions and repeated denials from the Lord, Martin is allowed to take them with some strict, even sometimes they use language of covenant, that Martin would only show them to a select handful of family members, his wife's sister, his parents, a brother, and that was the understanding. So Martin leaves Harmony in June 1828. Right on the eve of Emma giving birth to Joseph and Emma's first baby. And I think this just adds to the drama of this time, such a poignant episode. I can't imagine a more poignant and really distressing time for Joseph and Emma. The baby dies, so Joseph and Emma have lost their firstborn son. Emma almost dies, and Joseph is just you imagine just how desperate he is, worried about his wife. And then hanging over all of this is the time that's passing, and Martin is not returning, and they're not hearing anything.
Meanwhile, in Palmyra, Martin showed the manuscript to those he had promised and then locked it in his wife's bureau. But then someone else came and wanted to see it.
Apparently, this is one of the individuals that was not included among those who Martin was able to show them to. Well, Martin's got to get into that chest of drawers, and somehow he does. They break into the chest, and he shows this individual. We don't know who it is, but he shows this individual the manuscript. Well, Lucy Harris is upset by that. We don't know exactly why she's upset. I mean, maybe in part because he broke the chest of drawers, but it's also possible that she's upset that he's breaking the covenant that he had made to Joseph about showing more people the manuscript than he had promised he would.
To this date, it is not known for certain who took the manuscript or what eventually happened to it. What is known is that Joseph lost the gift of translation through the summer and early fall of 1828.
So our best clue about what the pages included comes from the preface to the first edition of the Book of Mormon, where Joseph Smith describes that what those pages contained was the Book of Lehi, an account abridged by Mormon taken from the plates of Lehi. So I think our best assumption is that it would have been in third person, like most of the Book of Mormon. It would have been an abridgment by Mormon of the earliest decades, earliest generations, we should say more than decades, earliest centuries of the Book of Mormon narrative from Lehi to King Benjamin. We don't know how many pages actually were included in this lost manuscript. Joseph Smith, in the first edition, the preface to the first edition of the Book of Mormon, that's the first time we encounter that number, 116 pages. But it's an intriguing number because it also corresponds to the number of pages in the printer's manuscript from First Nephi to Mosiah. And so there's, I think, not an unreasonable supposition that maybe Joseph, without knowing the exact number, got the estimate based on the replacement portion in the printer's manuscript, and so that he figured it was approximately the same.
It would be several months before Joseph Smith was able to translate again. According to the prophet's mother, Lucy Mack Smith, the angel returned the plates to him on September 22nd, 1828. But without a full-time scribe, the work moved slowly. Joseph Smith would only say the Book of Mormon was translated by the gift and power of God, that it was a miracle. Specific details of the process were not given by the prophet. However, witnesses like Emma Smith and Martin Harris and others speak of Joseph using seer stones and Urim and Thummim in the translation process.
Let me describe a little bit of the mechanics of translation. It appears that early on in the translation, Joseph Smith used the two seer stones that were found in the box with the plates. Now, we generally refer to those as the Urim and Thummim. This terminology comes from the Bible. The Urim and Thummim were holy stones that were used by the high priest in Israel to help them receive revelation. How they were used, we have many differing opinions about how they were used. But they're referenced in the Bible as being these holy stones that were used by the high priest, words that appear on the stone. Again, this is according to the witnesses of the translation and the scribes of the translation. Someone might ask, well, are the words actually appearing on the stone, or is Joseph looking at the stone and those words are appearing in his mind? I don't know exactly how translation took place. I know that it miraculously took place, but the actual mechanics of it, I don't know. This is how those who were witnesses of the translation and close associates with Joseph, this is how they understood it. That these words were appearing on the stone and that Joseph would read them off and then those words would disappear. Sometimes it perplexes people that Joseph isn't looking directly at the plates. Clearly, some level of personal investment and study in those plates was necessary to unlock the spiritual power that came through using these seer stones. At the same time, those seer stones are not exactly, they are not simple mechanical translation devices. They are not, a decoder wheel of sorts, right? They only function on the basis of Joseph Smith's worthiness and his preparedness. Now, sometimes it's perplexing for people that there are different translation devices. The two stones that were found together, bound together in that box with the plates, Emma says that he uses those stones at first to translate the first 116 pages of the book of Lehi. Emma then makes a pretty clear distinction that after that, she says, he used a small stone, not exactly black, but was rather dark in color. So she kind of made a distinction between the two, that the first early portion of the translation of the Book of Mormon, Joseph used the two stones bound together. After that, he used that separate single brown seer stone that he used the same way, placing it in the bottom of the hat, and that's how he did it.
And I think that's what you see with these instruments that Joseph Smith has. He's given them to help focus his mind, something tangible, something where, he's got a book here in an unknown tongue, and he's told to translate it. And you gotta kind of grip something and say, okay, how am I going to do this? And give me some help here. And through the Urim and Thummim, which I think the records would indicate that he uses that predominantly early on. Maybe not solely, but that's sort of the instrument of choice early on. And then over time, he switches to the seer stone. And I think what you see there is him going from something that he got from an angel, and he was told this specifically was made so for the translation of ancient languages. And that allows him to get the faith to translate. And when he starts getting this revelation down a little bit, then he can switch to something maybe not quite so fancy, but a lot more handy. The seer stone that you can carry around in your pocket. And by the time we're doing the Joseph Smith translation or the Abraham papyri, or later revelations that are now in the Doctrine and Covenants, by the time we're there, we don't need an instrument at all.
The translation was completed apparently mid to late June 1829. To this point, only Joseph Smith had seen the plates. That changed in Fayette, New York. In total, 12 more people would witness either the physical reality of the plates or the angel and the veracity of the translation.
When I'll have students read Joseph Smith's writings, I'll have them read the 1832 history so they can learn about the first vision, right? Here's another account of the first vision. While I want them to learn about the first vision, one of the things that happens every time students do it is they come away saying, there's no way Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon. It can't be from him, because the person who wrote this history didn't write the Book of Mormon. And that's because Joseph didn't write the Book of Mormon, right? It's a translation. It is a miracle that Joseph is the vessel by which this translation occurs, but he himself is not actually capable of producing the book.